We're monitoring what the polls are saying because they simply are the best gauge we have of national public opinion. And contrary to what people like to sometimes say, including politicians, when it comes to general elections, they're a pretty good guide, with one notable exception, that being the 2019 election. And these are all of the national polls that we have been tracking. The yes vote, sitting at 46% in the most recent Resolve poll. But, earlier in the year, we were seeing much higher numbers. Now, each of these polls individually has a margin of error, has some random variation. The best thing that we can do really is to consider all of them at once, and we get a lot more information by combining these into a single polling average. And when we do that, let me show you what we get. I mean, the trend line is not really of great surprise. We've seen declining support for yes and increasing support for no through the year. And our best estimate is the polls collectively saying that nationally, yes is sitting on about 45.3% according to the poll. So that is, to be clear, about a 9 or more than a 9 percentage point gap between yes and no at this stage. And if the referendum were held today, the polls would have to be out by significantly more than we saw in the 2019 federal election for yes to come out ahead. So I think it's pretty clear, and I think even the yes campaign would acknowledge this, they are starting this final sprint to the finish on the back foot. Yes has promised that they're going to be intensifying their campaign. They say they've got an army of 30,000 volunteers. I think that's a significant war chest. Let me just show you the last month's spending on the two main Facebook pages from the two campaigns. Yes 23 spending nearly $350,000 in a month. Fair Australia spending something like $20,000. So on just these two Facebook pages, yes, massively outspending no, but of course that's just a sliver of all of the spending that's happening. But I think we can probably conclude yes has more money. The question will be, do they have time to turn this kind of trend around? Because October 14 is not that far away.
No, and certainly now that the date is announced, but they're going to be off and racing, we know, Casey, this referendum will also depend very strongly on state results. So what can you tell us there?
Yeah, so just to recap, to be absolutely clear, there are two conditions for victory in a referendum. One is the national vote, and that's what these polls are measuring. 50% must vote yes for this referendum to succeed. But the other one, of course, is the states' votes. 4 of the 6 states need to vote yes for the referendum to pass. If 3 states vote no, the referendum is defeated. And we don't have as clear a picture of state polling just because the sample sizes are smaller. Normally they're looking, the state polls that are being published are looking at sub-samples of the national polls. But the picture that we are getting out of the states is that New South Wales and Victoria are on the higher end of support for yes, often though still not majority yes, but on the higher end. Queensland and WA on the lower end, and I think a lot of yes campaigners have hopes are fading that they'll win Queensland and WA. So let's just say hypothetically that New South Wales and Victoria go yes and Queensland and WA go no, and you end up with a map that looks a bit like this. The Northern Territory and the ACT don't count toward the state majority condition, they'll count towards the national vote only. And what we're left with is 2-2, and then South Australia and Tasmania, the 2 smallest states left. And these are actually the states that it's most tricky to get a read on public opinion because they're the smallest states. We have the smallest polling samples. But some polls are showing South Australia looking pretty good for yes. Some of them are showing it a bit more middly. It's a bit unclear, but it tells you a bit about why the Yes 23 campaign has gone not just to South Australia, but to outer suburban Adelaide to launch this campaign. I think it shows you that's an area that they really want to win.
Yeah, certainly is. Thanks so much there, Casey Briggs.